It was a quiet morning in a small village in Cebu, Philippines. But by the end of the day, neighbors discovered something no one could imagine. A mother and her two young children, including a 2-year-old, brutally murdered in their own home. A man, a machete, and a nightmare no one saw coming. What pushed him to commit such horrifying act? And how did one child escape the bloodshed? Stay with us to discover the chilling truth behind this tragedy. Cebu, Philippines is the kind of place where neighbors greet each other with warm smiles, and life moves in a slow, peaceful pace. But on January 27, 2025, that peace was shattered in the most unimaginable way. Carlo Camporedondo is a simple coconut vendor. To those who knew him, he is a simple man who worked hard and provided for his family. But beneath the surface, there were whispers. Neighbors talked about his erratic behavior and disturbing involvement with illegal substances. But what they didn't know was that how far things would spiral. That morning began like any other. Carlo's live-in partner, Junelyn Gimenez, 32 years old, was likely busy with her usual chores. Their children, 11-year-old June Carl, 7-year-old John Mark, and 2-year-old LJ, were either playing or preparing for the day ahead. It was an ordinary scene of a family life. But by 10:30 a.m., everything would change. Inside their small home, something snapped in Carlo. Neighbors described him as being high on drugs. Fueled by a dangerous combination of rage and substance abuse, Carlo grabbed a machete, the same tool he used daily to cut coconuts. But that day, it wasn't coconuts he was cutting. He turned on his own family. Junelyn, his live-in partner, was his first victim. He attacked her with a machete, slashing at her neck and nape in a fit of fury. Her screams echoed through the small house, but no one was close enough to save her. She never stood a chance. Next, Carlo turned his rage toward their children. June Carl, the eldest, was just 11 years old, a boy full of potential, dreams, and innocence. Carlo didn't hesitate. He hacked at the boy with the same machete, his blows landing with devastating force. The youngest child, 2-year-old LJ, was defenseless. What kind of man could harm a baby? But Carlo's mind was no longer functioning on reason. The same weapon ended LJ's short life in a similarly brutal manner. But there's one part of this dark story that feels like a small mercy. Carlo's middle child, 7-year-old John Mark, wasn't home at that time. He was at school, safe from the nightmare unfolding in his house. That small detail might be the only thing that prevented this tragedy from becoming worse. After the attack, Carlo didn't stay to face the consequences. Blood-stained and panicked, he fled the scene, leaving behind the lifeless bodies of his live-in partner and 2 of his children. It was a scene of pure horror, one that responding authorities later described as deeply unsettling. The bodies of Junelyn, June Carl, and LJ were found with fatal hack wounds, their necks and napes bearing the marks of Carlo's uncontrollable rage. The community of Cebu was thrown into shock and mourning. Neighbors who had once shared conversations and laughter with the family now found themselves grappling with the unthinkable. What could have driven Carlo to commit such a monstrous act? The police immediately launched a manhunt. Local security officers worked with authorities to crack Carlo down. It didn't take long. He was captured later that same day through a hot pursuit operation. When he was finally apprehended, his face showed no remorse, only the remnants of whatever emotions had driven him to commit such a brutal act. The aftermath of this tragedy left a trail of heartbreak. The family's modest home, once filled with the sounds of children playing, now stood silent. The community struggled to process what had happened. Carlo now faces multiple murder charges, but for those left behind, justice can never undo the damage. What makes this case even more troubling is the backdrop of Carlo's life. According to neighbors, his history with illegal drugs was well known. There were incidents in his past where his behavior had raised concerns, but no one had imagined it would escalate to this level. It raises uncomfortable questions about how communities deal with individuals struggling with addiction and mental health issues. Could this tragedy have been prevented if someone had intervened sooner? And then there's the question of the children. What does this mean for John Mark, the 7-year-old boy who survived simply because he was at school that day? He's now left without a mother, 2 siblings, and a father. His life, like so many others, have been changed by one man's moment of madness. As the investigation unfolds, more details will likely come to light, but the damage has already been done. It's a case that leaves us asking, how could a father turn into a monster? What could have been done to stop this? And how do we, as a society, protect families from tragedies like this in the future? This story isn't just about one man's action. It's about the ripple effects of his choices. It's about a community in mourning, a child left behind, and the lingering question of how something so senseless could happen in the first place. As we reflect on this case, we are left with a haunting reminder. Sometimes, the people we trust the most are the ones capable of causing the deepest pain. If you like this story, subscribe for more.